And we're up to number 2. And there was no question that this one was going to be number 2. And number 2 is the opening scene of Halo 2. Why did I choose this one? Well, there was a very good reason. It was a very good exposition on what happened in the very first game. For people that had, Halo 1 came out in the beginning of 2001. Halo 2 came out 4 years later. The good reason why was because for people that had played the game or had, for such a long time, it served as nostalgia. Serious nostalgia as to what reminded you of what happened at the very end of Halo 1. The destruction of the Halo. And that was just perfect. That was like the best way they could have done it, was from delivering it by the Covenant's perspective. We see this character that we didn't know before, this elite, in this gold armor. We later find out, call him the Arbiter. And he's being disgraced. We get to see the Covenant hierarchy for the very first time. We never got to see an elite before in the first Halo game. We never got to see prophets before in the first Halo game. And what really delivered was we got to see just what the effects, what your effects were to the Covenant after the effects of Halo 1, after the events of Halo 1. So it was a fantastic scene. The dialogue was great. Just hearing Keith David as the Arbiter deliver what happened. There was only one ship, but they called it the Pillar of Autumn. It fled, as I can't do it as well as Keith David did, but it was some great quotable scenes. It was a great opening. Seeing the destruction of the Halo ring and with the new engine was just great. So that's why it's number 2.
There was only one ship.
One? Are you sure?
Yes. They called it the Pillar of Autumn.
Why was it not destroyed with the rest of their fleet?
It fled as we set fire to their planet. But I followed with all the ships in my command.
When you first saw Halo, were you blinded by its majesty?
Blinded?
Paralyzed? Dumbstruck?
No.
Yet the humans were able to evade your ships, land on the sacred ring, and desecrate it with their filthy footsteps.
Noble hierarchs, surely you understand that once the parasite attacked...
There will be order in this council.
You were right to focus your attention on the Flood. But this demon, this Master Chief...
By the time I learned the demon's intent, there was nothing I could do.
The Prophet of Truth, this has gone on long enough. Make an example of this bungler. The Council demands it.
You are one of our most treasured instruments. Long have you led your fleet with honor and distinction. But your inability to safeguard Halo was a colossal failure.
Nay, it was heresy.
I will continue my campaign against the humans.
No, you will not. Soon the great journey shall begin. But when it does, the weight of your heresy will stay your feet, and you shall be left behind.
The plating was about to fail. There's viscosity throughout the gel layer. Optics, totally fried. And let's not even talk about the power supply. You know how expensive this gear is, son?
Tell that to the Covenant.
And finally, we're at number 1. And in all honesty, I have to say this was always going to be the number 1. As I was compiling this list, this one cutscene was on the top of every list I had. and I always marked it, this was going to be number 1. I can show you literally this entire notepad of what I had used as I was crossing things out and moving things around and changing things. This one never changed. This was always going to be my number 1. And that scene is the Two Betrayals opening scene to Halo 1, where the Chief is told by 343 Guilty Spark to activate the rings, not knowing what it's going to do. Cortana stops him and finally explains to him what the purpose of the rings are, and we get to see 343's reaction to that. There are a lot of reasons why I chose this scene. Particularly, I thought that Cortana did some great dialogue. I thought that what really stole the show in this scene was 343 Guilty Spark himself. And one moment where he says, and this will forever live on with me, you once asked me, if I had been given the choice, would I do it? Having had reasonable time to ponder your query, I would say yes. And when did Chief say this to 343 Guilty Spark? He never did. Why was 343 Guilty Spark always calling him Reclaimer? We don't know. We never found out about this until a very, very long time later. But the reason why is because I chose this scene was for that moment, in that it hinted upon backstory. It was such a perfect way to just deliver exposition of a backstory that either could have been told or could not have been told. It was the best way to just dangle a bit of a plot thread without just feeding it to the audience. And it was just excellent. It was just excellently delivered by the voice actors. It was excellently delivered by the writers, and it was a great scene. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed it.
Which means that any organism with sufficient mass and cognitive capability is a potential vector. Is something wrong?
No, nothing.
Splendid, shall we? Unfortunately, my usefulness to this particular endeavor has come to an end. Protocol does not allow units with my classification to perform a task as important as the reunification of the index with the core. That final step is reserved for you, Reclaimer. That wasn't supposed to happen.
Oh, really?
Cortana.
I've spent the last 12 hours cooped up in here watching you toady about, helping that thing get set to slit our throats.
Hold on now. He's a friend.
Oh, I didn't realize. He's your pal, is he? Your chum? Do you have any idea what that bastard almost made you do?
Yes. Activate Halo's defenses and destroy the Flood, which is why we brought the index to the control center.
You mean this?
A construct in the core? That is absolutely unacceptable.
Sod off!
What impertinence! I shall purge you at once!
You sure that's a good idea?
How dare you? Oh!
Do what? I have the index. You can just float and sputter.
Enough! The Flood is spreading. If we activate Halo's defenses, we can wipe them out.
You have no idea how this ring works, do you? Why the Forerunners built it? Halo doesn't kill Flood. It kills their food. Humans, Covenant, whatever. We're all equally edible. The only way to stop the Flood is to starve them to death. And that's exactly what Halo is designed to do. Wipe the galaxy clean of all sentient life. You don't believe me? Ask him.
Is it true?
More or less. Technically, this installation's pulse has a maximum effective radius of 25,000 light years. But once the others follow suit, this galaxy will be quite devoid of life. Or at least any life with sufficient biomass to sustain the Flood. But you already knew that. I mean, how couldn't you?
Left out that little detail, did he?
We have followed outbreak containment procedure to the letter. You were with me each step of the way as we managed this crisis.
Chief, I'm picking up movement.
Why would you hesitate to do what you've already done?
We need to go. Right now.
Last time you asked me, if it were my choice, would I do it? Having had considerable time to ponder your query, my answer has not changed. There is no choice. We must activate the ring.
Get us out of here.
If you are unwilling to help, I will simply find another. Still, I must have the index. Give your construct to me, or I will be forced to take her from you.
That's not going to happen.
So be it. Save his head. Dispose of the rest.